Hey, what's up? It's Anthony here at LANDR, and in this video, I'm going to show you 10 simple ways to help improve your MIDI editing skills. All of these functions are applicable across every DAW. These tips will help you become more inspired and make your workflow seamless so you can spend more time creating. If you're not sure what MIDI is, check out our video, What is MIDI? It will explain everything. Let's get started. So the first tip to help improve your MIDI editing skills is by using the Draw tool. Now, you've probably heard it, you've probably used it, but the Draw tool is the most efficient way to input MIDI notes, especially if you don't have a MIDI controller. So in Ableton, to access the Draw tool, you just have to press B, and then the cursor turns into a pencil, and you can just begin drawing in MIDI notes based on the rhythmic grid that you have in your session. So right now I have a rhythmic grid of 1/8 notes, and so I could just click and drag and I'm going to draw 1/8 notes. This is great if you want rolls for drums or if you want a lot of repeated notes. So I can click and drag and take them out as well, which is really helpful if you want to erase something really quick. So I'm going to draw a piano melody, just a nice descending line, and I want the notes to be one whole bar each. So to do that, I'm just going to adjust my rhythmic grid, and I can do this quickly by pressing Command 2. So I can see it's quarter notes, half notes, and now it's one bar. So I'm just going to draw it here. Perfect. So now I have my melody. I can exit the Draw tool, select the notes, and then I'll Command D to duplicate it another 3 times. So now I have some melody to work with. So the next way to help improve your MIDI editing skills is by using the fold function. So the fold function is right here in Ableton, and what it will do is fold the piano so it's only showing the notes that you've used. So I can just press it here and it's going to just show the notes that I inputted with the Draw tool. Just at the beginning here, so I'm going to input C minor since it's the scale I'm working with. And then I'll fix that up later. So I'm going to select this and just copy it for a few octaves. So I'll just hold Option. So I have 2 octaves there, and then I can select all of these, and I'm just going to drag them behind the playhead. So that big cluster of notes isn't going to play. It's just going to be behind the playhead, and then when I click Fold, only those notes will show up, so I can use the C minor scale without the other notes getting in the way, because the piano roll, it can be kind of overwhelming sometimes, especially if you're working with a lot of notes. The next function to really help with your MIDI editing skills is one I use all the time, and that's the Quantize tool. It's a really powerful tool that will help correct any rhythmic errors, especially when you're inputting notes with a MIDI controller. So to demonstrate this, I'm just going to play a phrase on my MIDI controller, and then I'll quantize it afterwards. And I'll just put in maybe like a left-hand passage underneath my melody here. Okay, turn my metronome on, and I'm going to hit record here. All right, so I've got my passage. I can just double click here, and then there are the MIDI notes that I've inputted. So if I zoom in close, you can see they're not really on the grid. And that's because I played it. I'm a human, not a robot. And I can just select them and press Command-Shift-U. And then you can see the quantization box pop up here. So I'm going to select 1/8 note since I played in 1/8 notes. I'm going to adjust the note to the start and the end of the 1/8 note. And I'm going to use this percentage here to tell the quantization tool to only quantize about 70%. So it keeps that human quality of the timing, and it doesn't over quantize it right to the grid, so I can keep that kind of natural feeling. So you saw the MIDI notes shift there. The next way to improve your MIDI editing skills is by using humanization. Now, humanization is like the opposite of quantization. So you can take notes that you've maybe drawn in, they're right on the grid, and you can adjust them based on the parameters that make it sound the most human. So parameters like velocity or timing. Now, humanization is called a few different things across DAWs, but in Ableton, it's called the groove pool, and we use it to humanize our MIDI notes. So to demonstrate this, I've just drawn in a melody over top of the piano that I just recorded. So you can see it's right on the grid and all of the velocities are the same. They're just cranked at 127 there. And I can use the groove pool to alter the velocities and alter the timing and make this drawn in melody sound like a MIDI performance. So you can access the groove pool by just pressing the two waves here. And if you're not sure about the groove pool, you want to learn more, I've done a whole video going over all of the functions of it. So I'm just going to be glossing over it today, but go check out that video. It's a really powerful tool that can help you be really creative. I already have a groove loaded in. It's called Crescendo, and you can preview it here. You can hear the velocities gradually getting louder and louder, and I think that's going to add a nice human element to this phrase. It's going to make it go up and down, and it's going to sound really great. So to activate it, I'm just going to double click the MIDI clip and select it here. I can go back and I can start to adjust the parameters here. So bass is 8th note since I played 8th notes. I don't have to quantize it because I drew them in. They're right on the grid. The timing is where it's going to land on the grid, so I can adjust that just to be a little bit off so it sounds a bit more human. The random function is going to randomize the timing a bit, so it's going to change things up a lot. You can see if I put this to 100%, it's going to sound kind of bad. It sounds really off time, so you can take advantage of this function, but you don't want to overuse it or else it's going to make the performance sound bad. So I'll just chuck it around 20%. And you can even hear the velocities gradually get louder and louder. So that's really, really cool. Let's hear it in context with the left hand. That's great. I'm just going to duplicate it another time. And I'll just reduce the velocity. It's a bit quiet off the start. I'm just going to consolidate these so they're one clip, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to commit the groove to the MIDI notes, and that's going to change the MIDI notes, and you'll see the velocities and the placement of the MIDI notes on the grid change right away. So there you go. You can see the crescendo happening, and it's just going from maybe a medium velocity all the way up, and it's giving it that nice expressive sound. If I zoom in, you can see the notes are just a little bit off the grid. It's giving it more of that human performance. So the next way to help with your MIDI editing skills is by using my favorite function. It's called the MIDI capture. And what it does is it actually captures MIDI notes even if the DAW isn't recording. And I love this because sometimes I'll just be jamming along with something that I've created, and then I come up with a really great idea, and then all of a sudden the idea is gone and I've lost it. But I can just press this button and it's going to grab those MIDI notes for me and put them into the DAW. It's great. So I'll just demonstrate that by playing along with the left-hand piano, and I'll just bring this up a couple octaves. And I'm just going to press play. I'm going to jam along with it. Okay, that was a cool melody. So I like that. All I have to do is go up here to the MIDI capture and press it. And then all of the notes that I've played are right there. And then I can go in and edit them the way I had it in my head. Let's say I made some mistakes. So I don't know why that's so long, but I can take it back. And then I can quantize it further. I really like that. So the next way to improve your MIDI editing skills is a quick one. It's just shifting the notes up or down. And you can use the arrow keys for this just to go up a semitone or down a semitone. And you can actually hold shift to go up and down octaves. And then you can also go side to side based on the rhythmic grid that you have set up. So I have mine at 8th notes, so it's just going over 8th notes. It's a really quick tip, but sometimes we forget about these MIDI functions that really help improve our workflow. This next function might be called something different in different DAWs, but the function is the same, and I know it exists in many different DAWs. It's called the half or double time function, and in Ableton, you can just find that here. You can see it says :2 or *2, and that's just divided by 2 or times 2, so you can divide the actual amount that's going by 2. So let's say we have quarter notes. If I select them all, they'll all become half notes. So it'll take the whole phrase and divide everything by 2 equally. The same thing with times 2, it'll make it double the length. So this is great if you're looking to experiment with the phrasing of notes. So I can take the passage that I recorded here with my MIDI capture, and I can divide it by 2 to make it go by twice as fast. And you can just keep going with that. So if I wanted to make it another twice as fast. And the same thing can happen with the times 2. I can make it go by twice as long. It's a really helpful function if you have chords that are going by and you want to try them out. Maybe if you have them going by at whole notes and you want to get them to be half notes, it's really quick click of the button instead of manually adjusting all of the MIDI notes. So the next function is actually my second favorite after MIDI capture, and that's the step input function. And step input actually allows you to play in your notes by step according to the rhythmic grid you have set up. So I can go here into my melody track, and I'll just extend this a little bit. To do this, you have to just make sure the headphone is on here, and you can just hold a note. And you see I have my rhythmic grid set up at quarter notes. Step input is great if you want to play something but you're not technically great at it. So I'm not a great piano player, and if I wanted to play a fast passage, I would have to use the step input function to do that. Step input is really great for chord progressions. You can actually just hold the chord down, and then if you just keep pressing the right arrow, it'll actually extend the chord. So the last function to really speed up your MIDI editing is the legato function. Legato means bound in Italian, and that's exactly what it does. It binds MIDI notes to other MIDI notes. So for example, let's say I played in a melody. I'll just record something simple. So I have notes that are really short from that recorded melody, and legato is actually going to bind the MIDI notes to each other. So it's a nice cohesive melody and the notes are sustained properly. So I just press it and you can see the notes, and it doesn't even matter on the rhythmic value. They're sustained until the next note is played. So this is before the legato function and then after. And then I can also quantize that because it's a bit out of time. So as you can see, there are tons of ways to help increase your MIDI editing workflow. If I missed anything, leave it in the comments below. I'd really like to know what you use to help you with your MIDI editing and creating. Remember, like and subscribe, hit the bell to be notified if you want to see more videos like this one.